Hi, brothers and sisters. The Lord was sharing with me on one of the biggest things that's holding a lot of us back as believers, and that's a slave mentality. And this is because a lot of believers don't realize that they are not slaves of their emotions, their thoughts, their feelings, and circumstances. In the Word of God, it says that Jesus has set us free. And so now the power belongs to us on if we're going to choose to accept thoughts, emotions, feelings as our own, or if we're going to reject them. And so it's just like an example is if we feel anxiety or let's say fear, we have to realize that we're no longer a slave to that anxiety or fear. And this is where the problem happens because a lot of people know that in their head. They know that the Word of God says that they have been set free. They know that anxiety doesn't belong to a believer, or fear or whatnot, or any other wrong emotion. But then what happens if, they believe that, but then they still continue to feel anxiety, they still continue to feel fear or whatnot? Does that mean that the Word of God is not true? Well, it says that let God be true and every man a liar. So if we believe that and then the experience, the emotion, the thought continues to linger, it means that the experience is a lie. It means that that lie is from the devil. And so what do? It shows us what to do in the Word. In James, it says, first we must submit to God, then we must resist the devil. We have to resist the devil and then he will flee. And this is, I think, where a lot of people end up stumbling, because before victory, there's always going to be a test. And sometimes we don't know how long we have to resist the devil's lie for. Sometimes it may be, we only have to resist a few times and then he'll flee. But sometimes, we may have to resist for a month. We don't know how long we have to keep resisting for. But one thing we do know is if we keep resisting the devil's lie, he will flee. And the Lord himself says that he tests the righteous. And so even with Joseph, it said that until the word of the Lord came to pass, the word of the Lord tested him. And there's a really good example that I read in this book called The Life That Wins. And I'm paraphrasing it, but it's exactly like this. God has given us a land. So if we possessed a land on this earth, it belongs to us legally. But if we notice someone has come on our land and they have planted a tent, what we can do is we can go up to that person and we can pull out the contract and say, hey, get off my land. And that person has to leave because they have to obey the law of the land. They have to. But the problem is if you yourself are unsure that that land belongs to you, if you yourself don't even know your legal rights, or you're wishy-washy about it, then what's going to happen is that you're not going to stand firm. You're not going to tell that person to leave with authority. And that thief is going to go ahead and plant that tent there. He may invite other people onto your property as well, until eventually he is going to get so bold that he's going to kick you off the land and take possession of it himself. And so that's the same way that the enemy works. Is the Lord has set us free. He has given us the contract. He has said, you are free. You're free over all these things. And so we have to stand firm on that, because the enemy is a master of deception. Just like Laban tricked Jacob into being his servant for 7 more years, the enemy can do the same thing for us. He can still make us believe that we're still slaves to something through trickery or deceit. There is nothing that he cannot do in of this world to try to deceive us. And so the choice belongs to us. So if we were, for example, we were to feel anxiety, it's as simple as us saying, we can ask, or even a thought that we don't like, we don't have to, we can simply say, do I accept this or not? And if we don't, we can tell the enemy to take it back. We can say, I don't accept this. And then, of course, if that emotion or feeling still lingers, we have to know that we are being tested. Are we going to believe our experience or the word of God? Because we walk by faith and not by sight. And eventually, the enemy must flee. He must flee as long as we stand firm and resist. And there's another very powerful example of this in this book called The Normal Christian Life by Watchman Nee. And he gives an example where he was really ill and he was on his bed, and the Lord, he heard the word of the Lord speak to him saying, "You are healed." But as the night progressed, he noticed that his fever was increasing. He was actually getting more sick. And so he was about to, go back into prayer, to pray about it. But he actually got rebuked by the Lord saying, "No, don't pray about it. Stand in faith." And so he was confused because he said, "If the Lord said I'm healed, then what is this fever? Why do I feel worse? Why is my body aching more?" But then he realized that those things must be a lie. And so he rebuked the fever as a lie. He rebuked the aches as a lie. He rebuked those as lying symptoms. And in the morning he woke up and he was well. And so that's an example to show that the enemy is not going to rest at just lying words. He's going to use lying emotions. He's going to use lying circumstances. He is going to use everything in this world because it says that the whole world belongs to him. It's under his authority. So there's nothing which he's going to do there's nothing which he can't do to try to convince us of a lie. But this is where we have the word of God, and that's why it says that we overcome by our faith. And so it's just to encourage you all that no matter what the enemy does, it says even in the end times that he's going to be able to pour fire from the sky. We have to take the word of God as our shield. We can't look to the left or the right. It's almost like putting blinders on our eyes. We just have to set our face like flint, not look at experience, emotions, whatever it is. Just keep our eyes focused on the word of God and not be moved from that, because that is the way to victory. I hope that makes sense. God bless you all.